Today's guest is Dr. Michael Scheuer, a former CIA officer who spent 22 years in the agency where he led the counterterrorism center's Bin Laden station. He anonymously authored the best-selling Imperial Hubris, where he argued that Washington's meddling caused the very terrorism it claimed to fight. He joins me now from Virginia. Who is playing who? Is it Israel playing a mentally ill genocide Joe? Or is it by design that a avowed Zionist like Biden, who backed killing in Lebanon, mass killing, said to Menachem Begin, as Begin recalled, he didn't care how many children were killed in Lebanon. Blinken, of course, who's brought up by Robert Maxwell's confidant and lawyer. Is it by design? Is the United States playing Israel and Netanyahu, or is Netanyahu playing Biden?
No, I think it's exactly the second, sir. I think if you look at the Congress, I think in history there has never been a foreign legislature owned by another country as completely as the American Congress is by the Israelis. Not directly always by the Israelis, it's through their bluster and their demands that they get involved. But the American geography, if you will, is loaded with pro-Israeli organizations like the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center, AIPAC, and untold numbers of Jewish millionaires. They say Trump took $100 million from a Jewish woman who lives in Las Vegas.
Miriam Adelson, casino heiress, as it were, casino widow.
Yes, that's exactly right. But no, since 1948, we've been owned lock, stock, and barrel by the Israelis. Since Truman took money to run the 1948 election from Jewish Americans, that has been a steady uphill climb toward owning the Congress and the media. That's just the way it is in this country, sir. Those organizations I just mentioned to you are now employed gaining data about American conservatives and Christians. So when the time comes to round them up, they give the information to the FBI. I imagine they're on a retainer from the FBI. And they'll have information about where to go to find people maybe like me who are a little bit unhappy with the way foreigners interfere in our business.
So they should basically all register as foreign agents of Israel. They're not working for the United States.
At a minimum. I think they should be closed down myself. I don't think we have to put up as a nation state with the presence of malign foreign actors, whether they're registered or not. You know, America is a pretty simple place. Our first president said we needed to avoid entanglements with other nations. Why? We don't want to be in their wars. But second, an over-fondness for any foreign country will make it hard for people who oppose that particular bilateral relationship to oppose it publicly. Indeed, those who oppose will become identified as the enemy. So in a thing called the farewell address by General Washington.
I mean, you know why I ask whether it's by design, because often you hear from these talking heads and pundits who are coached, no doubt, by this military-industrial complex that is bought, as you say, by Israel. They say, oh, but it's so important to have this base in this oil-rich, energy, strategic region, and they give us intelligence that's useful. I understand from your memoir that when you were at the CIA, you only once got some useful intelligence from Israel.
Yes, in the 4 years, a little bit more than 4 years, I ran operations against Osama bin Laden. We got one piece of useful information. And I asked permission to share it with people on the ground because it involved a risk to people. And the Israelis told us no. And I shared it anyway. And it happened to have a positive impact, so I didn't get fired or suspended or anything for, offending our masters.
The catastrophe of Hurricane Helen, which has affected North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and Virginia, 100 dead, more than 100 dead.
More than 100,
millions
I believe, sir.
Without power and so on. Genocide Joe had no problem saying no federal aid while giving $9 billion to Israel, and I don't know how many billions to Zelensky. Do you think the full focus now, really, of the dying days of this administration then is to is to aid Netanyahu. I understand that his destroyers in the Red Sea, was it, or was it in the Mediterranean, were helping, trying to combat and kill the retaliatory missiles from Iran?
I imagine that's the case, sir. We have a big part of our Atlantic fleet over there at the moment. We also have in both Ukraine and Israel unknown numbers of American troops on the ground. And certainly if they've been there for any length of time, we've had casualties, and the American people have been never told, A, officially that they're there, and B, no announcements of any casualties have ever been made in this country on either the Israeli front or the Zelensky front. And so what are they doing? Are they coercing parents to keep their mouths shut? What's going on there, I wonder?
Leon Panetta, who succeeded your CIA boss, who was George Tenet, he said that that Mossad pager attack on Lebanon, which killed so many and wounded thousands, children, women, indiscriminate, was a terror attack. Would the U.S. have been involved in this supply chain kind of interference? Was that something that you read as possible operations when you were at the CIA? And do they not realize the blowback? Do they not realize the blowback as they congratulated the Israelis on that operation that blinded children and murdered doctors and nurses in hospitals in Beirut?
You have to understand, sir, that there's the agency and then there's the seventh floor, which is the director and all of his minions. Their concern is to keep the Israelis happy. It used to be a pair of countries, the Saudis and the Israelis. When I was there, if you had a piece of information and the Saudis or the Israelis would get wind of it and they wanted it, they would contact the agency, and if the agency decided it couldn't be shared, they just call the White House. The agency would then get a call from the White House, and the information would be shared with those two countries.